complimentary strategic assessment. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to my colleague in Israel, the Director of Strategy for the Europe-Israel Press Association, Mr. Tal Rabina. Just a couple of house rules before I do that. If any of you have questions, please put those questions in the chat, and we will endeavor to get as many of those questions answered as possible after some opening statements from our guests. And in addition to that, given that some of you have interesting handles on your iPhones or whatever tools you are using, if you could identify your media outlet, that would be extremely useful to us as well. So that chat facility will be open. Once again, thanks for your attention. Tal, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Very nice to see some very familiar faces from all across Europe. Since when we invited you guys to this brief, it was quite quiet. And actually, we were wondering whether there will be an interest in participating in such a brief. But in Israel, as you know, there's never a dull moment. And for the last 2.5 hours, even here where I'm talking to you from the center of Israel, we had rockets and launching are still going on. Also to Bet Shemesh, which is more to Jerusalem area. And I think that without any further ado, I would like to ask Lieutenant Colonel Richard Hecht, what is the situation right now?
So, Tal, how long do I have the floor for?
You are the most important person right now because you have all the data. So please take the floor.
Okay, so pleasure to meet you all. I just we'll go straight into the nitty-gritty. I just got from our operation floor the current update. As you all know, Israel right now is under quite a big barrage. It's still mainly Islamic Jihad, and it's very, very important to put that in context, and maybe some other affiliated organizations. I know there's all sorts of rumors about Hamas. Currently, again, this is Islamic Jihad directed. We've had 270 launches towards Israel, and 205 have actually crossed into the area of Israel, meaning there's also failed launches, which is something that we also saw in the summer timeframe, meaning there's more than 60 failed launches, meaning they're firing from within their population and it's landing in their population. About 120 from the 205 landed in the vicinity of Gaza, 4 in the greater Rishon LeZion, Palmachim area. 1 rocket arrived in South Tel Aviv. As we speak, there's sirens now in Gaza. I'm en route to Gaza to meet Fox News and CNN. 22 rockets in Ashkelon and 6 in Ashdod. We've intercepted 62 with our Iron Dome. Now, meaning when we intercepted, these were rockets that were focusing, that were supposed to be landing in our defended areas. So that's basically what's happened on the side of the red side, what's been launched into Israel. We kicked off this operation, just to put it into context. I'll go back to the Ramadan, where Islamic Jihad fired to Israel. There was a convergence also to Judea and Samaria, Lebanon, Syria. After that, the death of Khader Adnan last Tuesday, where one of the guys that we targeted, Bahatini, he used that also to fire rockets in Sderot in the middle of the day. That was last Tuesday. And basically, since last Tuesday, we decided that we were going to go and focus on a targeted operation on Islamic Jihad kingpins in Gaza. And we're talking about Ghanem, who is one of their senior committee guys, another guy called Bahatini, who's who took over as the northern commander of Islamic Jihad instead of Taysir Jabri. and also another guy called Azaladdin, who was in charge of moving capabilities from Gaza to Judea and Samaria. So we targeted these two guys. That was the focus of our operation. We saw them as destabilizing factors right now in Gaza. And if you talked to me yesterday, I said, we completed our goal. Today we saw preparation to fire. And we saw a launch team, also an anti-tank launch team that we neutralized, and also people trying to launch towards Israel, which we neutralized. And then we're now in a big barrage as we speak towards Israel. So that's in a nutshell the situation. I'm sure you're all more or less read into it. So I don't want to sort of, I want to maybe pass it over to shoot some Q&A. I saw who's participating here. And I'll let Tal, you can run maybe the Q&A.
Yeah, of course. And first thing, we have a question for clarification. Daniel Mosseri, please present yourself and ask a question. Please unmute.
Hello, this is Daniel Mosseri. I'm an Italian journalist for Libero. And at the beginning of your speech, Lieutenant, you said that you counted 270 launches, but since when?
Since today.
Okay, wow, thank you. That was a short.
I would just say, my friends, just imagine you are sitting there in your cities, your towns, and this is what comes from the sky. Please, any other questions, or should we move to maybe until there will be other questions? Professor Kobi Michael, Richard talked about the operational aspect. Could you please identify the players in this horrific game?
Yes, good afternoon. In order to understand what actually is going here on the ground, we have to go back more than a year to March 22, because Israel is facing or tackling a terror campaign, well-organized and orchestrated terror campaign since March 22. And this is actually what brought the Palestinian Islamic Jihad to the front. We have to understand that the Palestinian Islamic Jihad is a small organization in comparison to Hamas, but there are many other differences between these two organizations. The Palestinian Islamic Jihad is, I would say, in a sense, a pure Iranian proxy. It means that it depended totally on the Iranian support. This organization actually cannot operate without the Iranian support. And the Iranian support is, first of all, with money, secondly, with safe haven to the leaders, thirdly, with weapons, which is smuggled from South Lebanon through Syria, the open and the bounded borders between Syria and Jordan, to Jordan, and from Jordan through the Jordan Valley to the northern districts of the West Bank, mainly Jenin district. And this is the reason that the Palestinian Islamic Jihad became to be a very influential, strong organization in the West Bank, mainly in the northern districts of the West Bank. The other differences between the Palestinian Islamic Jihad and Hamas, although Hamas also can be considered as an Iranian proxy, is that Hamas is much less dependent on Iran in comparison to the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. Hamas can live even without the Iranian assistance, although it is very assisted by Iran by the same facilities and platforms that I have mentioned with regard to the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. And what has happened is that due to the strengthening process of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad in the northern districts of the West Bank, and its activities, terror activities and terror operations against Israel in the West Bank and from the West Bank in Israel, Hamas was forced to join. And actually, it met I would say, the agenda of Saleh al-Aruri, who is the Hamas commander of the West Bank, and he has his agenda, which is, by the way, not totally similar or not totally identified with the agenda of Yahya Sinwar in the Gaza Strip. This leads us to the understanding that when we are talking about Hamas, we are not talking about a monolithic entity, okay? It's something which is much more complicated than that. But I can say in general lines that there are differences between the internal or the domestic leadership of Hamas, which is located in Gaza, headed by Yahya Sinwar and Mohammed Deif, and the external leadership of Hamas, which is headed by Ismail Haniyeh, which is mostly located in Doha, Qatar, but traveling all the Middle East, mainly Tehran, Damascus, Beirut, and Saleh al-Aruri. And those two guys are much more extremists in comparison to Yahya Sinwar with regard to the active participation of Hamas in terror, generally speaking, and with regard to the Gaza Strip in particular. Sinwar doesn't like the idea of dragging the Gaza Strip to the campaign. He supports Hamas activities in East Jerusalem, in the West Bank, in South Lebanon, and in the domestic arena inside Israel. But for the time being, he prefers to keep Gaza outside of the game because he wants to promote the reconstruction of the Gaza Strip with the huge project which is led by the Egyptians and financed by the Emirates, and to enable the Palestinian workers to go and to work in Israel, and to gain more support and popularity from its constituency in the Gaza Strip. And they have, in the Gaza Strip, they have no interest to be dragged now to the military campaign vis-a-vis Israel. And this brings us to another difference between the Palestinian Islamic Jihad and Hamas. The Palestinian Islamic Jihad is a pure terror organization, very radical organization, very extremist, violent, Salafist organization. The raison d'etre of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad is the armed resistance against Israel. They have no aspirations to replace the Palestinian Authority, to become sovereign or ruler of territory or population. All their intention is to lead the armed resistance against Israel, and they are directed by the Iranians, and they are, as I said before, a tool, a pawn in the hands of the Iranians. Hamas, on the other hand, it is something which is much more complicated. Hamas is not only a terror organization, is a much bigger terror organization than the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. Its military capacities in comparison to the Palestinian Authority are much bigger and are much serious. But in the very same time, Hamas is also a political actor. This is a religious ideological movement, and their strategic end state is to gain full control over the entire Palestinian system, which means the Palestinian Authority and the PLO. And therefore, they do not seek to reach any serious reconciliation with Fatah. They don't care to have such reconciliation as a stage in their strategic path towards their strategic end goal, but this is not their aim, okay? This is only a means. This is the reason that there is a sort of a zero-sum game between the PA/Fatah and Hamas, and therefore Hamas is very serious threat to the stability and to the survival of the Palestinian Authority, and this brings the Palestinian Authority and Israel to a sort of an encounter of interests vis-a-vis Hamas. Now, what we see now is that the Palestinian Islamic Jihad was hit in a very severe manner 2 days ago by the Israeli attack, and it is not only the 3 persons that were targeted and were killed, it is also the major facilities and manufacturers of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad in the Gaza Strip, which means that the capabilities, the capacities, the military capacities of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad decreased in a very severe, in a very dramatic manner. This is the reason that the Palestinian Islamic Jihad was, I would say, a bit restricted with regard to its retaliation to the Israeli attack. They understood that if they will retaliate independently, meaning without Hamas support, the retaliation will be perceived as a very weak retaliation, something that might reflect their weakness in the Israeli eyes and in the eyes of the Palestinian constituency in the Gaza Strip and in the West Bank. And this was the reason that they asked for the unification of the rows, which means that all the fronts, that all the factions will be united, and the retaliation will be a retaliation of all the Palestinian factions. Hamas, in this regard, has a problem, because if Hamas will join the efforts with the Palestinian Islamic Jihad and will be an active player in the Palestinian retaliation from the Gaza Strip, they might drag Israel to a very aggressive response that will drag them to an aggressive response, and that will bring Hamas to a position that they don't want to be in. And therefore, they are trying to maneuver, and they are trying, on the one hand, to project a sort of solidarity towards the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and this is in the declarative level, and they open and they operate the joint operational room together with the Palestinian Islamic Jihad and the other marginal Palestinian organizations in the Gaza Strip. And I assume that they also participated in this way or another in the last wave of launching of the rockets launching.
Kobi, let's full stop here, and we'll get more into it. And thank you for all this great knowledge and background. I just see that there was a house, fortunately enough, an empty house in Sderot that got hit. And I would like to go to Eden, who is in Sderot. Eden, are you with us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you and see you. Thank you for joining us. Can you just tell us who you are and what is going on right now?
My name is Eden. Nice to meet you. I'm from Sderot. I was born and raised here. It's in the Gaza Strip, if you don't know. So it's not started today. It started about 20 years ago. The first rocket that failed that I remember was in my school when I was 6 years old. Today I'm 26. And the last few days was very hard. Today is the most hard day. It's not just the rockets. The few days that we knew that are going to come, that was the worst part. When you feel the stress, even when you don't have the rockets yet. Now we have today, from today, but still we're waiting. We was waiting a few days for that, and the stress is horrible for all of us. We didn't sleep.
Thank you for that. We'll come back to you in a moment. I see we have a special guest here, the Minister of Diaspora and Combating Anti-Semitism, Minister Amichai Shikli. Are you with us?
Yes, I'm with us. I'm with you. I'm hoping that you can see me and hear me well.
Yeah, very clear. It's a good surprise to have you with us, and we are grateful. I'm sure you are very, very busy at this time. We are here with a lot of journalists and other friends from all over Europe, and I'm sure they are interesting to hear maybe the most curious question, the Jihad,
Okay,
the Islamic Jihad sent more than 104 rockets last week. Why did you decide to operate only yesterday evening?
Yes, so first and foremost, the decision of the Islamic Jihad to fire 104 rockets for no reason is the cause for the recent escalation. There was no reason for Jihadic Islam to fire these missiles. The choice of Khader Arnan, a terrorist who was responsible for the actions of Jihadic Islam in North Samaria and Jenin, he was in trial.
We cannot hear you, Minister.
He chose to start saying we have a law in Israel that we cannot force anyone. We cannot force also a prisoner of Hamas or Jihad. We cannot force him to eat. So it's his own will. So that was the beginning of this last escalation. And obviously we cannot respond immediately because the terrorists are going to shelters, they are hiding. And so in order to have a situation where we can hit the person and the leaders who are responsible for this attack, for this assault, it might take several days. It even may take a week. As you saw, we were very, very, very chirurgic with the response, very accurate, with a huge effort not to harm and not to hurt any innocent civilians. Naturally, it's impossible to have zero consequences, and unfortunately, there are some killed. But this is the situation of a war, and what we're seeing from the Hamas organization, now from the Jihadic Islam organization, is that they are firing deliberately to main cities to harm the absolute contrary.
I'm afraid we did not hear your last sentence, Minister. Can you repeat, please? I believe you were talking about they are deliberately aiming to civilian population.
Yeah, yes. I was saying that while the IDF and the state of Israel are doing everything.
Well, unfortunately, we cannot hear you. Maybe you can improve your internet connection, and just until you do it, Lieutenant Colonel Hecht,
civilians.
If you can please improve the internet connection, because we absolutely cannot hear you.
I'm sorry.
Just until you do so, Lieutenant Colonel Hecht, could you elaborate a bit about the efforts of the IDF to minimize the hit of uninvolved casualties?
So very differently from our adversaries and the Islamists that we are fighting against, we don't shoot statistic weapons hoping to kill any Jew or a person that's walking in the street in the middle of the day to school. our effort, every target that we go for is someone that we do a full process with intelligence to understand that he's a target. And as the minister said, we do everything we can to minimize collateral damage. I would tell you that basically we got the order from the government to focus on these targets, these 3 operatives, and we were supposed to do it on Saturday night. We postponed it because the circumstances of collateral damage, the weather, the people around them didn't allow us to do it. So we waited for the right moment in time where we saw that the collateral damage would be as minimal. And again, we have focused weaponry on this, and it's a full due process based on standards that any Western military uses. And again, hurtfully, there's some people that get killed, and we try to minimize it as much as we can.
There's no secret that Israel is experiencing some internal problems, and there were talked about people who might not join the forces if they will be called. Are you facing any of this problem?
Absolutely not. The IDF, when it comes down to, and again, I'm an air defense guy in the background, everybody who's been called has arrived. And we're trying to keep politics out of the IDF. I think the IDF is a national consensus, and it has been and it will be.
Thank you so much for now. Minister Shikli, are you still with us? Can we hear you? Minister Shikli? No, they're still working on that connection. So I will go back to you, Richard, with 2 more questions we are getting from Felix from Britain and Luca from Spain. First question is, how is it possible for so many launches to come from Gaza without permission of the Hamas? And Luca from Spain is asking, in the next few hours, do you think Hamas will join the PIG, or will it stand by and watch how the situation develops?
It's very hard to see at this point. So the first question on awareness, I'm not the spokesperson of the Hamas, but again, what we are seeing, our indication is that this is an Islamic Jihad operation. I know there's a lot of rumors around, but again, that's our main focus.
Okay, and about assessment about please, guys, please mute yourself. Richard, the first question was, is it possible that the GIP are launching so many, the PIG are launching so many rockets without the permission or even cooperation of the Hamas?
So again, it's hard to say. I'm not the spokesperson of the Hamas, but just like we had in Breaking Dawn, there's things that maybe are not that we're not aware of, but this is mainly Islamic Jihad. I know that I'm repeating the same message because that's the context and the language of this campaign.
And if we can elaborate with one more question, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was quoted a few minutes ago telling the mayors of the South that they should be prepared for widening the fights, any escalations. What does it mean operatively, as much as you can tell us?
So, as I said before, the IDF is ready. We will mobilize our air defense, our Iron Dome, and mainly to focus on people that are trying to launch against Israel, and we will protect our civilians anywhere, any place, not only in the south, also ready for anything that develops in the east or in the north.
Okay, so thank you so much for now. We know we are very, very busy, and we appreciate the time. If there will be some more questions, we'll try to get back to you afterwards. Thank you so much, Lieutenant Colonel Richard Hecht, the spokesperson for the IDF. Kobi Michael, you were talking and giving us the background before about, so to speak, the players. Could you elaborate about the map of the interest between the Hamas and the Islamic Jihad, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, in referring to this very special occasion here now?
There is I would say, a very slight convergence of interests between both, and this goes or refers to the idea of being able to kill as much as possible Israelis. This is a sort of a common goal that these two organizations have. But I think that there are no any further strategic interests which could be considered as joint interest beyond this interest due to the explanations that I have provided before. But I would like to refer to the first question that was asked before, and I do assume that everything is done by Hamas permission from the Gaza Strip. I mean that Hamas couldn't stop or prevent Palestinian Islamic Jihad from doing that. And in addition to that, I would say that I assess that Hamas is also participating in this stage as well, not in a very broad or big scale, but I think that Hamas participates, if not directly, indirectly. What does it mean indirectly? It means that Hamas provides the Palestinian Islamic Jihad with rockets, okay, with military capacities and facilities, and enables the Palestinian Islamic Jihad to use them as if they were launched by the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, okay, to distance Hamas from this in order to minimize the Israeli retaliation against Hamas. But I do believe that Hamas is not only in the picture, but Hamas also assists the Palestinian Islamic Jihad in indirect manner, as I explained.
Thank you. And I believe we have better connection with the Minister of Diaspora, Minister Shikli. If you can unmute yourself, can we hear you, please? Minister Shikli? We are waiting for Minister Shikli to join us again. If you can please unmute yourself. No, it seems that not yet. So until we'll correct this connection, Kobi, I asked Lieutenant Colonel Hecht about the internal Israeli problems, and he said that there was no influence at the outcome of people joining the forces when they were called. How much, to your assessment, it affect the wishes of the Islamic Jihad and others to attack at these days?
If we are talking about the Israeli side, I think that people who say that there is a direct connection between the political reality or the domestic politics in Israel to the attack or to the Israeli response, I think that they are very ignorant with regard to military issues, because such an attack, okay, should be well prepared and well planned, and it cannot be realized unless you have at least two parameters. The first one is the accessibility, which means that the target should be in a place that you can attack them, okay? And this is something which is not related to political issues. This is something which is related to the routine life of the targets. And the second parameter, or the second component that you have to have, is accurate intelligence, information. And the information is also not related to the domestic political reality or issues. Once you have the encounter between the accessibility and the information, understanding that the operational capacities are there all the time. And after checking all checks with regard to the potential collateral damage, and as you heard before from Lieutenant Colonel Echt, this is a very, very important consideration that Israel takes before realizing an operation of this kind. So if you have the accessibility, you have the information, and you have the clearance with regard to the collateral damage, then you attack. And this was the opportunity, okay, that we had before 2 days. And I think that with all the political problems that Prime Minister Netanyahu has, I believe that he is still very responsible, very cautious, and we see that he is very cautious, and the Israeli government is very cautious. Otherwise, we have been in a different reality vis-a-vis Hamas. I mean, Israel has very good reasons to attack in a much more aggressive manner to attack Hamas. But Israel doesn't do that because Israel understands that Hamas is needed there in the Gaza Strip as a reliable and responsible address that will run the daily life of 2 million peoples. And Israel understands that all the other options are much worse than this option. And therefore, Israel retaliates, or Israel responds in a very, I would say, responsible manner.
Thank you for that. I would like to take this point and go back to Minister of Diaspora, Minister Shikli. Kobi, you were talking about retaliating and how aggressive Israel should be. Minister Shikli, a lot of the people, especially in the south of Israel, are telling us out front, we are willing to suffer even more and we have the power to wait, but please get over with it. Be more aggressive. What is your perspective, sir?
So first of all, I'm sorry about the lack of connectivity before. I think we have it better now.
Much better, thank you.
Yeah, so yes, we need to be very aggressive against Iran and against the proxies of Iran. You all should know Islamic Jihad, it's not a Palestinian organization. It is an organization that is funded by Iran. Its ideology is coming from Iran. I'm very satisfied with the results of these operations so far. And I think that the eliminating of these 3 commanders of the Islamic Jihad, this is a very important step that will create deterrence, and it sends a very clear message to the head of Hamas that if they will join and if they will open fire, they will end the same way like the commanders of Islamic Jihad. We also can see that Islamic Jihad is failing to bring his action and to fulfill his mission. Almost every jihad activist that goes out from his shelter is being eliminated by our forces, and all they know is to fire missiles on innocent civilians and to target innocent civilians. That's the only thing they know, and we will make sure that they're going to stop, and they're going to stop for a long period of time.
Thank you. I think we have a question from France. Julie Conan, could you please unmute yourself? Julie, are you with us? Daniel, I think you have another question. Well, it seems there are some problems, so I'll keep on with your permission, Minister. And
sorry,
yeah.
Tal. If I may, very, very briefly, because I have a questions. It might
go ahead.
So the first question from Julie Conan at La Croix France: has Israel witnessed any suspicious activity in terms of South Lebanon and Syria since the beginning of Shield and Arrow, and what is being done to prevent any contagion from these fronts? That's question number one. And a second question from Daniel, who asks, Daniel Mosseri again from Libero, presumably referring to Kobe's earlier question. Do you mean Hamas cannot say no to the Palestinian jihad? Is Hamas getting weaker? Or I suppose another way of asking that question is the tail wagging the dog?
What we're seeing now that Hamas is not joining, I think they have a very good reason not to join. And if they will join, they will regret it. Regarding the question about Syria and Lebanon, so in Syria, we see a constant efforts to empower Hezbollah presence in the Golan, the Syrian Golan, and we are doing a constant effort to make it difficult for them to do so. I have no information about any new suspicious specific movements as was asked here.
And just before we go to Kobe about whether Hamas can or cannot stop the GIP, Minister Shikli, as we said before we disconnected, we all know the situation in the internal politics in Israel. Do you feel there is any effect of this situation right now when the rockets are flying in the air?
No, so in the political sphere, we can see that there is a full support of opposition in the operation, and in the public sphere and debate. I don't see and I don't hear any unique voices that says any powerful message or any disagreements, significant disagreements. We have, as usual, we have radical left organizations and radical left like Haaretz, that they will always take the Palestinian side, but rather than that, nothing new. It's the same as before.
And being a minister of diaspora, as we all know to our sorrow, in times of tension here in the Middle East, the Jews in the diaspora, whether it's Europe or the States, unfortunately are suffering as well. Do you have a message to the Jewish people abroad at the diaspora?
Look, we are working constantly. Even now, I just came out of a discussion dealing with this particular mission in the diaspora. And we are working constantly to make sure that every community will be protected. We are also working about their efforts to participate in our efforts to defend the state of Israel from the ideological attack led by the new anti-Semite wave, led by BDS activists and also Hamas personnel that stays in Europe or Muslim Brotherhood. So we help them with the information and training to better help us with combating these new anti-Semitism, if it's in the campuses, parliaments, etc. So these are the efforts that we are doing. And as for now, with this operation is being going on for about 24 hours. We're still in the beginning. We will see how it develops and if more steps needs to take place.
So thank you so much, Minister Shikli. We know we are very, very busy, of course. So we thank you and we appreciate the time. It was a surprise, but a very good surprise for us. So really, we appreciate.
Yeah.
And
maybe
thank you so
one
much.
last note. I think,
of course,
look, we saw the Iranian regime hangs innocent people who were their only sin was that they criticized Islam, and they hanged them in the middle of the street. It's the same Iran that is sending drones to attack civil society in Ukraine, and it's the same Iran that sends the jihadic Islam to send their missiles to innocent people in Sderot or in Tel Aviv. And I think that these facts and what we're seeing in Ukraine can also help the European community to understand better the motivation of these terror organizations, who is funding them, who is providing them the equipment, and what is the nature of the Iranian regime, which is the one behind the scene. You have different players. It might be Hamas, it might be Hezbollah or Islamic Jihad, but the source of evil, of injustice, of despotism, of tyranny in this region is Iran. And that's the main thing that I think you should take from this conversation. And I think we have a common war against Iran. It's not just the war of the state of Israel. This is also the war of Europe. And I think it might be refreshing to hear a clear voice from the European to stand with the state of Israel, just like you are standing against against the Iranian attacks and involvement in what's happening in Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your time and words. Thank you so much, Minister Amichai Shikli. And then we are going back to you to Sderot. Can you stay few more days in shelter like you are, as it seems you are now in some kind of a shelter?
I am in an underground shelter. I don't want to stay here, but I have no choice right now. No, I don't want to stay here. I can't stay here. You know, it's very difficult. The stress, it's hard to handle. It's not like one time a day. It's all day long where rockets falling, when you hear the alarms. Here, you don't see me running because I'm in a shelter room, underground. But people around here running and stressed all day long. So no, I don't like to stay here.
Yeah, of course. But the question was, as we know, a lot of people in the South are telling the government, we are willing to stay in the shelters, but please go and do something more aggressive. This was the action. What do you think as a young person living in Sderot?
So just to remind you, this is not started today. It started last week when they shoot bombs at us, when there was rockets fire. And as far as I know, and as far as I heard, Israeli government didn't respond. And today, when they did, it made us feel a little bit better, because it's good to know that someone is fighting for us and that we are matter. But we don't like to anyone to get hurt. We know that also they are hurting, we are hurting. We don't want anyone to suffer. But this is the situation. And if we need to attack, we need to attack. There's nothing you can do. You cannot sit in silence.
Thank you very much for these words. And I think on a humanitarian basis, my colleagues will allow me to send you a big hug to you and to whoever is suffering right now for no reason in both sides.
God bless Israel. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Michael, is it going to end? How there is a possibility to end these clashes this time, or are we just experiencing another round for more to come afterwards?
Before answering this question, let me refer to the previous question that I was asked about the tail and the dog.
Of course.
And about Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. The question is not if Hamas can or cannot stop the Palestinian Islamic Jihad from launching rockets towards Israel. The question is what Hamas thinks should be the best management or the best strategy vis-a-vis the Palestinian Islamic Jihad when they see their position and their political leadership vis-a-vis the Palestinian constituencies, not only the Palestinian constituency in the Gaza Strip, but the Palestinian constituency in the West Bank, in East Jerusalem, and in the other arenas or fronts as well. And therefore, Hamas understands that they have to enable the Palestinian Islamic Jihad to retaliate. Not only to enable the Palestinian Islamic Jihad to retaliate, but to give the impression to the Palestinian constituency that Hamas even supported the Palestinian Islamic Jihad and participated in the retaliation under the slogan of the unity of the rows, okay, the unity of the factions. And therefore, I believe that Hamas not only enabled the Palestinian Islamic Jihad to launch the rockets, but also, as I said before, helped them assisted the Palestinian Islamic Jihad by providing them some rockets from their storage, I mean from Hamas storage. Now, with regard to because, and here I would like to add just one sentence, because we have to remember what is the end state, the strategic end state of Hamas. And Hamas understands that in order to reach to its strategic end states, they have to ensure that they remain the spearhead of the armed resistance against Israel, not the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, but they. But they have to maneuver, they have to balance, okay, this motivation with some other motivations and some other aims that they have to realize. Now, going back to the other questions that you asked me about what is going to be at the end of the day. I believe, and I'm very cautious with regard to the Egyptian side, what is going there, and I hear some voices from Egypt that call for a ceasefire, and they say the Egyptians are saying that the Palestinian Islamic Jihad is willing to reach to a ceasefire. I think that the Palestinian Islamic Jihad is, I would say, in its final capacities, okay, and he wants the organization wants to finalize this scene when it is with the upper hands, which means that it didn't finish this cycle when it was exhausted, totally exhausted, but he finished. He finalized this cycle with the upper hand, and therefore I think that they have an interest, as well as Hamas has an interest, to finalize everything as soon as possible. And I think that this is the Israeli interest as well, and taking into consideration that this is the Egyptian interest as well. I believe that it will not take too long. And we will find ourselves in the end of this cycle. If it will not be the end, it means that the Palestinian retaliation was too aggressive, and Israel was forced to retaliate in a very aggressive manner. This will drag Hamas to the campaign, and we are in a different movie. Okay, but I believe that the probability to the end of this cycle is higher than the probability to the continuation of this cycle. But in the very same time, I have to remind us all that this is another chapter in a very well-known ceremony, at least since 2009, and this will be recorded in the history of the relations between Israel and the Gaza Strip, between Israel and the Palestinian terror organizations, as another chapter in this unended symphony. Okay, as long as the paradigm in Israel will not be shifted, and as long as Hamas will prefers to keep the current organizing rationale of calm and arrangements, okay, as the preferable strategy. Once Hamas will reach to the stage that they will be sure or confident enough that their strategy about the multi-front strategy, okay, which means that they are able to operate simultaneously 5 fronts against Israel, and they will operate it when Israel is in the worst moment of it, which means that the social resilience, the national resilience is in a very problematic point or something like that. Unless Hamas will reach to this point, I think that they will remain stick to their strategy. And unless Israel will reach to the conclusion that there is an alternative paradigm with regard to the Palestinian arena as a whole, where the Palestinian Authority is the major component of this new paradigm, Israel will remain stick to its strategy, and we will meet in the next chapter, be it in 3 months, in 1 year, in 2 years, but we are in the same movie.
Before we conclude, one question that I'm sure a lot of our colleagues are curious about. In previous clashes, there was the point of the Israeli Arabs, the Arab citizens of Israel. How would you assess their involvement or not involving this time?
Hamas does huge efforts, devotes huge efforts and resources in order to penetrate to the domestic arena, in order to build infrastructures that will be operated in the D-Day in their eyes. They believe that if they will be able to build infrastructures that will be strong and effective enough, they will be able to collapse Israel while operating simultaneously all the other fronts as well. I'm not sure that they are succeeding or they are doing so well, but the problem is that they do not need too much people to be involved or to be part of these infrastructures. I believe that the vast majority of the Arab citizens of Israel are willing to be embedded and to be integrated in the Israeli society, the Israeli economy. And I think that in their identity, the Palestinian identity is not necessarily the first one or the most important one. But we have 2 million Arab citizens in Israel, and it's enough that you will have less than 1% of them that will join Hamas or will cooperate with Hamas, and to have several thousands, okay, or even several hundreds that will be able to launch terror attacks and very severe terror attacks inside the state of Israel, together with the other fronts or terror that will be operated from other fronts, in order to cause a very severe damage to the state of Israel, and in order to cause a huge loss here in the region. And therefore, I do want to believe that the Arab political leadership of the Arab citizens of Israel will be responsible enough in order to prevent Hamas from succeeding in its efforts. And I hope that the Arab citizens of Israel will follow the majority of them, the vast majority of them, and will not cooperate with Hamas. And last sentence, with your permission, we have to understand that Hamas is very, very pleased, and even more than that, because of the Israeli attack on the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. They cannot, of course, declare it, they cannot say it, and they declare that they are with the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and they have to demonstrate solidarity and so on and so forth. But the Palestinian Islamic Jihad is a huge headache for Hamas. We have to understand it. The Palestinian Islamic Jihad challenges, on a daily basis, challenges Hamas in the Gaza Strip, and Hamas as a sovereign, Hamas as the ruler power, they don't want to be challenged. And as much as the Palestinian Islamic Jihad will be weaker from the military point of view, they will be more controlled and they will be less effective. and they will be less challenging. And therefore, Hamas is very happy that Israel does the work for them. Okay, they will not say it, as I said before, but they're very happy. You are muted.
It's good that I'm unmuted because I was thanking you and telling everybody that it's, as always, a great pleasure having you and learned so much from you. So we appreciate your time and effort to be recruited in such a rapid way and help us know better the situation. Thank you so much. And Alex, the floor is yours.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention. Thank you to all of our speakers. And if I may, a special thank you to you as well, Tal. Tal, you've been very cool under pressure. I say that because you're also in the line of rocket fire. And just about 10 minutes before this briefing started, you did mention that you may have to run at any given moment. So thank you for your professionalism and diligence. We had, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully a very from your perspective, an interesting briefing. It was fast moving, pacey. We thank you for your attention. Just to let you know that immediately after this briefing, we will be compressing this video. We'll be sending it around to all of you who have participated, because there is a lot to take in. Kobe in particular, Professor Michael rather, covered a lot of ground and made a lot of interesting points along with everyone else, of course, but I think it's worth unpacking that, which I think it's the video will be useful to you if any of you are filing copy or indeed doing pieces to camera. So with that said, thank you very much for your attention. Thank you for joining us. And if there are any other developments, we will of course keep you fully posted, and we look forward to seeing you at another Europe-Israel Press Association briefing. Until then, thank you very much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.